October 12, 1871. The Weekly Northern Indianian, Warsaw, Indiana. From the Cleveland Herald. A mystery. Queer portraits on glass in Ashtabula, Ohio, September 19. For several months past, the wiseacres of central and northern Ohio have been greatly exercised over the singular phenomena of portraits appearing upon panes of window glass, clearly defined and distinct, and manifestly without any human agency. We have had of late an occurrence or epoch of this kind in Ashtabula, and from an eyewitness of the phenomena, whose veracity is undoubted, we learn the following facts. The picture is on a window pane in a house at the harbor, occupied by Mr. Charles Lynn. The outlines of the picture were first noticed some weeks since by a member of the family. They were then dim, shadowy, and indistinct, but gradually became fully developed, until at length a perfect picture was plainly discernible upon the glass. It is the picture of a man of middle age, full heavy beard, piercing black eyes, garments of a modern cut, and a wide turn-down collar of the style commonly called Shakespeare. The eye is the striking feature of the picture. It is particularly bright and sharp, and rests upon you with piercing brilliancy, which seems almost superhuman and demoniac. In whatever position about the room in which a person may place himself, those eyes seem to rest upon him with an intensity of expression which is far from agreeable, if not awe-inspiring. As a natural sequence to such phenomena, the house has been besieged by throngs of visitors. Honorable B.F. Wade and lady were among the first visitors, and honest old Ben departed in as much ignorance of the cause of such an effect as anyone else. Several city reporters have made the quiet city of Ashtabula the theme of a column of the marvelous about glass pictures, ghosts, and other infernalitia, but our spiritualistic friends are the only ones who pretend to give any solution to the mystery. They allege it to be the manifest work of the spirits of the other world, and point to it as a marked evidence of the truth of their doctrines. Of what particular benefit these portraits are designed, either to the inhabitants of the celestial or anti-celestial spheres, the teachers and mediums of spiritualism do not venture an opinion. All attempts to wash off this portrait, even by the use of the strongest acids, have utterly failed. However, upon an attempt to remove the pane from the sash, the portrait entirely disappeared. On this occasion, the glass had been purchased by a marvel hunter for the sum of $25. Upon the glass being replaced, the picture was again as clear and distinct as before. The picture has not yet been recognized as that of anyone ever known in this section of the country, and why and how it came there is a nut for some savant or naturalist or philosopher or scientist or any other man to crack, the cracking of which would no doubt add many new features to the art of photography and no few rays to the luster of natural science. Unless our spiritualistic friends should be in the main correct, in which case the puzzled world may only have a good reason to ejaculate, "Whatever is right." October 14, 1871. Hartford Weekly Times, Hartford, Connecticut. The spiritual manifestations at Moravia, New York. Men's nerves and convictions shaken. A correspondent of the New York Star gives some further particulars of the extraordinary manifestations at the seances of the Keelers at their house, built under so-called spiritual direction in the little village of Moravia, Cayuga County, New York, not far from Auburn. We quote a few samples. On the second floor, there is a room, 12 by 14, with a bay window facing the street. There is only one entrance to the room, and across the space occupied by the bay window is a thin board partition. In nearly the center of this partition is a small rectangular-shaped window, across which is drawn a black cloth curtain. It is at this window that the spirits appear and talk to their friends. There is a piano in the room, and some spirits are good musicians. The medium charges $2 a sitting, which generally covers about 2 hours. From 1 to 20 persons may be present at one sitting, and the expense may be apportioned among them. After a sufficient number have collected to witness the manifestations, the medium leads them into the above-described room. They take seats in chairs placed in rows before the black curtain covering the wonderful window. The door is shut and fastened with an air of the gravest solemnity. The medium takes a seat directly in front of the board partition and beneath the window. She folds her arms and sits motionless with a funeral aspect. Up to this time, incredulous spectators have joked very freely and seem to regard the affair in the light of fun. Suddenly suppressed ohs are heard coming from the females present, and the room becomes totally dark. The darkness is so dense that it is painful to the eyes. A few moments elapse, and the audience experience disagreeable sensations. A scintillating speck of light, resembling a star, flies through the darkness. Several stars quickly follow it, and darting hither and thither, make a fine pyrotechnic display. Large and small lights dance about the room, which resemble the St. Elmo's phosphorescent gleams that are often seen by sailors at night. This continues for about a quarter of an hour, when a spirit voice calls for a light. A lamp standing on a table is lighted, the light of day being totally excluded. The medium rises, and drawing back the black curtain, retires behind the cabinet and occupies a chair concealed from view. She goes behind the cabinet, she says, to lend her magnetism to the spirits. She sits perfectly still. The slightest movement could be heard by those outside. The shades of departed friends and relatives now discover themselves to the awe-stricken audience. The faces of near and dear friends, and also of persons never before heard of, come to the window. Some things occurred at a sitting the other day that would unsettle many minds. A gentleman and wife residing on Madison Square, New York, visited the medium with a party of friends. The spirit of the old lady's family physician, who had been dead many years, came to the window. She had been suffering from some bodily ailment or other for a long time. She asked the doctor to prescribe for her, and he did so. She returned to New York and, following the spirit's directions, has been entirely cured. The same lady saw the spirit of her deceased grandmother. She came in a shadow, looking as she did on earth, with her ruffled cap and spectacles. "Clara," it said, "I attended my funeral. I saw you lift my hand as my corpse lay in the coffin. I followed it to the grave and saw everything. It will not be a great while before we can come to you in your own homes. Our bodies die, but our spirits are as free as the birds of the air." A young lady from Buffalo was visited by the spirit of one calling himself James Booth. She sat down at the piano and played a lively tune, the sounds of an unseen violin accompanying her, keeping correct time. The party struck up John Brown, and many voices from the spirit world joined heartily in the chorus. The spirit of a very dear friend of a lady present appeared, and, stretching out a very beautifully molded arm, presented her a bluish rose. People are patted on the head and knees by invisible hands. Individuals with weak nerves become frightened at this operation and, until reassured by a few remarks from Mr. Keeler, show evident signs of leaving their seats in precipitate haste. Some sights, which daily occur, make one's marrow creep, and the unbelieving scoffer goes away with convictions written on his dismayed countenance. The Keelers regard it all as a mere exposition of their religious belief. The room and cabinet have been minutely examined by many visitors, and nothing unusual or suspicious has been discovered. People from Syracuse, Auburn, and Ithaca make up large parties and visit Moravia to see the manifestations. There has been a greater number visiting the Keelers this summer than ever before. They bid fair to throw in the shade the once celebrated Fox sisters of Rochester. December 7, 1871. Meriden Daily Republican, Meriden, Connecticut. Recent spiritual manifestations. Recent spiritual manifestations in Henry Ward Beecher's church at Brooklyn are beginning to attract a share of public attention. These manifestations have centered in a small pine table standing near the pulpit. This table has been seen to tip. Raps on it have been heard during prayers, and it has even been noticed rising straight from the floor with the singing and bending low towards the minister with the benediction. These manifestations are real and have been seen by the whole congregation. The table was used by a number of lady reporters, and, whenever they attempted to move away from it, it became more lively than ever. Last Sunday, Mr. Beecher preached in favor of Christian spiritualism, but without alluding to the manifestations to which we have referred. In his sermon, he affirmed that ever since the creation of the world, the people have been acted upon by outside spiritual influences. The Bible is quoted as sustaining him in taking this ground. The world needs light to show the impossibility of annihilation, and he insists as an argument in favor of spiritualism that it settles faith. The fact of his coming out so decidedly in favor of this doctrine was evidently no less a surprise to the members of Plymouth Church than it will be to the entire country.